If you're thinking about moving to Lexington, Kentucky, this video is going to dig into the pros, the cons, the good, the bad, the ugly. And despite me knowing Lexington like the back of my hand when it comes to real estate, there's one fact in here that totally took me by surprise. My name's Shelby Johnson and I am the Shelby Show on social media. I'm a real estate agent in Lexington, Kentucky, but I wasn't born here. This is not the opinions of some super biased local who's never lived anywhere else. I've lived in 15 different states and countries all over the world and then chose Lexington as the one to settle down in. So here we are for today, pros and cons right now. Pro number one, money. Okay, cost of living is a huge consideration, and overall Lexington's cost of living is 8% lower than the national average. And with that, when you think about cost of living, like the first thing that pops into your mind is housing, right? Because that's our biggest monthly expense. In Lexington, rents are about 30% cheaper and home prices are about 23% cheaper than the national averages. So if you compare median home prices of Lexington, we're looking at right around $340,000, and the median nationwide is like $440,000. So that's 100 G's. You know, you can either save a lot monthly, or if you want, you can get a lot more bang for your buck when it comes to housing. And even more so, actually, if you look to the cities directly surrounding Lexington, the second that you cross city limits, prices and competition drop even further, but that's another video for another day. When it comes to living expenses, another thing to consider is utilities. We're 15% cheaper than the national average. Gas, you can get a gallon for about 30 cents cheaper than the national average. And groceries, eating out, goods and services are about the same, so not saving a ton there, but there is an interesting thing when it comes to groceries on taxes, which I will get into in that section. People ask me all the time, how much do I need to make to live comfortably in Lexington? And my answer is, it depends. It depends on you, your lifestyle, etc. But in general, single adults with no kids, like 50 grand, married couple, 75 grand, or a family with kids, you're looking at 90 to 100,000, you know, plus, depending again on your lifestyle. But this brings us right into pro number two of moving to Lexington, which is jobs. We've got some really strong employers that have diversified our economy, which makes us more recession resistant than the other mid-sized markets that rely heavily just on one industry, especially since we're not a huge city, 320,000 people. But for big employers, we've got the University of Kentucky, which has 35,000 students and employs over 12,000 people from across a ton of different sectors. And guys, people bleed blue around here, like brace yourself, it's wild. More on this later. Another big employer of the area is everything related to the horse industry. Lexington claims the well-deserved title of the horse capital of the world with 450 horse farms. There's the Kentucky Horse Park, and there's Keeneland, which is a race course track. But what all that means is that there are a ton of horse-related jobs, whether it be at the farms, at the park, at Keeneland, which is absolutely huge. And it just pours money into our economy every year, and also bolsters the tourism department. Again, we'll talk more on that later. Other big employers that we have are Amazon, Smucker's Peanut Butter, Lexmark, Valvoline, Toyota, and we have a really robust public school system, and healthcare is freaking huge here with 5 major hospitals, over 20,000 employers, and some of the top rankings in the country. And while we're semi on this note, I want to emphasize schools and healthcare, because those are two more really big pros of living in Lexington. So schools. Across the board, Fayette County Public Schools, aka Lexington, Kentucky, has an A- rating on niche.com, which is high. And the county actually has some really insane things in the works, which I'll get to in just a second. But if you haven't heard of niche.com, definitely check it out. It's one of my favorite sites for intel on schools. This is another thing people ask us for help for all the time. So if you are considering moving to Lexington and you just want to cut to the chase, hit me up. I'd love to talk to you about what the different areas, the different schools, and all of that means for you and your family. When it comes to high schools, so Henry Clay High School just got approved for a massive $151 million renovation with a projected completion of winter 2028. So the plans are to take what is currently a normal high school and turn it into a super efficient campus, complete with outdoor learning spaces and amphitheater. But the thing I'm actually most excited about that's coming up in the county school system is this thing called The Hill, which is the hub for innovative learning and leadership. And it's a career and technical school that's opening this fall 2025. And what it does is it offers 19 programs for Fayette County Public Schools to students from 9 to 12, those grades, and things like construction trades, culinary arts, media arts and sciences, engineering, pre-nursing, like all of these things that are actually helpful for real life. So students will have a home high school, a normal high school, and then it's one of the 13 across the county. And then if they apply and get accepted to The Hill, then they will get shuttled back and forth for the specific classes that they opt into. But that home school, that original school, is where they're gonna do sports, clubs, and all of that stuff. But that's so cool, right? Like, I seriously wish I had that when I was growing up. Okay, healthcare is something that I never used to worry about, but now I think about it more and more. Lexington has 5 major hospitals, including the state's #1 ranked trauma center, a nationally recognized cancer hospital, and a children's hospital that ranks in the top 5 in the country. The University of Kentucky also gets $488 million in annual funding for research focusing on cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, and more. And it's just a magnet for like cutting edge treatments that's right here in our city. To put that into perspective, almost half of the US cities only have 1 to 2 hospitals, and 19% of cities in the United States only have 1 system. So what's having multiple options means to us is that you can choose the best fit for you based on insurance, proximity, availability, personal preference, and having competition out there brings everyone up to a higher level of performance. Up next on the pros list, point number 3, things to do. If you're considering moving here, this section is so important because the lifestyle in which you lead specifically impacts which area in Lexington you should consider moving. But I know it can be a ton to think about. So if you get overwhelmed just thinking about all this, maybe you don't even know where to start when it comes to this move, that's where we come in. My team and I help people every day buy, sell, and invest and relocate here in Lexington. And we love educating people just like you on how to make the best decision for you and your family. So holler at your girl. Okay, so things to do. I have organized this into 5 categories just because it's so much to digest otherwise. So within things to do, category number 1 is sports. Kentucky does not have an NFL team, an NBA team, an MLB team. So when it comes to sports, the University of Kentucky is the team. It's not just college sports, it's like the heart and soul of the entire state. And game days feel like a holiday that the entire city joins in on. This is something that I was not prepared for when I moved here. Streets shut down. Everyone's there or watching, everyone is wearing blue. And when I first moved here, I didn't pay attention to game day, and I'd like go out to eat, walk in, and 100% of the people would be wearing blue. So it's actually really helpful if you don't like planning outfits, because just buy blue and you're good to go, whatever the occasion. University of Kentucky is in the SEC, so that's really fun. And luckily we've got some pretty good teams. So men's basketball has 8 NCAA titles, which is the 2nd most ever. It's the #1 in wins, tournaments, Final Fours, Sweet 16s. So if you love men's basketball, welcome home. For baseball, we had our College World Series debut in 2024. And then the last one I wanted to mention, just because I grew up doing gymnastics, so I'm really into that, is that the UK women's gymnastics team is a regular top 10 team. They get perfect 10s, and the meets are super, super fun to watch at Rupp Arena downtown. Outside of UK sports, we've also got the Lexington Sporting Club, which is the home to our very own United Soccer League teams. They just finished building their brand new $80 million stadium and training fields. So dope. Also within sports-ish category is Keeneland, which I mentioned before and I will not breeze over again. So like I said in the beginning, Lexington is the horse capital of the world. Keeneland is Lexington's premier horse racetrack. You guys might have heard of like the Kentucky Derby. That's not Lexington. That is like the stepsister back in Louisville. But Keeneland is what is in Lexington, and it opened back in 1936. It runs only for 2 months out of the year. So it's in April and October. And when I tell you the whole city shows up, like people show up, they take off work, it's wild. So there's 15 to 20,000 people every single day who show up, and they dress the part. I'm talking dresses, I'm talking heels, big hats. The guys are in bow ties and pastels, and they show up, they tailgate for hours, they go in, they bet on races, they drink mint juleps and see everyone they know, rain or shine. It's totally a vibe. And it's not just for the locals, which I think is very cool. So people fly in from all over the world to experience Keeneland, which again brings in literally millions of dollars into our economy annually. Keeneland is just, it's one of those things that just feels like Lexington. So when you move here, you'll end up going whether or not you care about horse racing. See you there. Within things to do, next up is events. Lexington has way more going on than people expect because even though it's only a mid-sized city, it's one of the biggest cities in Kentucky. So we get a lot of big name national tours that don't stop anywhere else in the state. And for example, Rupp Arena, that's where all of these events, a lot of them are happening. It's also where we host our basketball game for UK. But last year alone, we had Chris Stapleton, Lizzo, Morgan Wallen, Kevin Hart, WWE, Monster Trucks, Olivia Rodrigo. I'm done, that's my whole list. But basically, if there's a major tour coming through to Kentucky, it's probably gonna land at Rupp. And outside of the national stuff, Lexington loves local. So every Thursday from April to October, downtown hosts this thing called Thursday Night Live, which is a free concert series with food trucks and big local crowd, and it's really fun. Also, the Lexington Farmers Market operates downtown in the spring, the fall, and they always have something going on. Coffee week, burger week, craft beer week, restaurant week. And there's a ton for music lovers like Railbird, and there's a Manchester Music Hall downtown, the Burl. So many artsy and family-friendly things to check out. You guys get the point. There's a lot to do, and I'm only semi-social. So really, I can't even keep up. That's the bottom line. Plenty to do, no matter what you're interested in. Next things to do is outdoors. So when it comes to outdoors, you have to remember that Lexington is a city, but right outside the city limits, and even in a lot of areas within the city, you will drive from suburbia, the next street over, you're like hit in the face with horse farms, with open pasture. But even inside the city limits, Lexington does a really great job of helping outdoor lovers stay happy. So they have 117 parks. But one of my favorite parks is Veteran Park, less than a mile from my house. I go there a lot. There's 238 acres, over 12 miles of mountain biking trails. Also the Arboretum, which is 100 acres of Kentucky plants and walking paths and things for kids. But Jacobson Park is another go-to for locals. They have this really cool thing every Friday in the month of June that's called Friday Flicks, and they put up this massive screen and they play family-friendly movies, and people bring their lawn chairs and like blankets and stuff and make it a whole event. Like it's adorable. Lexington is adorable. It's like the most wholesome place that I've ever lived in my entire life. And if you're a fitness junkie like me, you'll be pretty pleased at the amount of gym options in the area. I personally love CrossFit, which I know is polarizing, but there's quite a few good ones out there if you're into it, along with normal gyms. And of course, you have all your cycle bars, F45, Pure Barre, yoga, etc. If you want it, you got it, okay? Next within things to do is culture. What I mean by culture, I'm talking like theater, history, arts, like tours, stuff like this. And so I know firsthand that Lexington has an opera house. They have Broadway tours, ballet, concerts. There's also the Lexington Philharmonic and a strong local theater scene. They actually have this thing called Five Across that is an entrepreneur pitch competition. It's a personal favorite of mine because I love all things business. But okay, moving on to the last point within the categories of things to do in Lexington, which is food, drink, nightlife. Because the food is really good here and there's a ton of diversity. Some of my favorite places that you guys have to check out, Bella Notte for the best Italian, Coeur d'Alema for margaritas, Mexican, that whole vibe, awesome. Beau's Cafe, guys, has the world's best pancakes. Like, it's not their tagline, I have declared. Drinks. We have some really cool distilleries and plenty of bars and lounges. Also, some really fun speakeasies, another personal favorite of mine. There's this place called Trifecta that is a glass blowing art shop on the outside, and then you push through this giant mirror on the wall and uncover a speakeasy surprise. But I have to warn you, we are a college town, and during the school year, the bars are pretty full of maybe 21-year-olds, you know what I'm saying? And now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the cons of moving to Lexington. Con number 1, accessibility. So Lexington is smack dab in the middle of the country. If you haven't seen it on a map, pull up a map. You're not driving to the beach and back in a day. You are not walking or riding your bike to everything you need, and there is no major international airport in the city. But there are a couple main factors that make this list, the accessibility con, less painful for me. So these are, Lexington sits right at the intersection of I-75 and I-64, which makes it incredibly easy to get almost anywhere in the region. You just pop on and you're at Cincinnati, you're at Louisville, which, by the way, you could also be at their international airports. That's all in about an hour 15 to hour 45. You could also just pop on one of those interstates and hit Nashville. Hit Nashville, Indianapolis, Columbus within 4 hours, pretty easy. So this makes Lexington a great home base if you travel for work or you love weekend road trips. Another thing about their accessibility that I do appreciate is that Lexington's city design, if you look at it on a map, you'll see that it's built like a wagon wheel. So Lexington's in the heart, and then you have New Circle Road forming the rim around the city. And then from the center of this wagon wheel, you'll see different spokes coming out to all of the neighboring cities. So if you look at the map, you'll see going south, Richmond Road takes you straight to Richmond. Then we have Nicholasville Road that takes you straight to Nicholasville. We have Winchester Road. We have Georgetown Road. So learning the city and finding your way around comes really naturally. Rush hour can get a little dicey. Just some few roads that are just bad for traffic overall. I'm gonna do a whole video on traffic, things to know. On the airport note, Lexington does have its own like super nuggety small airport. So if you want to fly directly from town, from Lexington versus driving to Cincinnati or driving to Louisville, you totally can. It's just your options on direct flights are pretty limited. Next con to consider when moving to Lexington is weather. We do have 4 distinct seasons, and I'll break them down real quick. So spring is absolutely gorgeous. It usually starts middle of April. We got trees and flowers blooming all over the place. Temperatures, you're looking at 50s to 70s. It's honestly one of the best times to get outside, with the caveat that if you have allergies, brace yourself. It's gonna be rough. After spring comes summer. So summer starts like June-ish and hits hard with the heat and the humidity because Kentucky is technically the South. I mention this because it feels like the South when the summer hits. Temperatures, they often climb into the 90s, and this crazy, beautiful bluegrass. It starts growing like crazy though. You have to cut it every 10 days in the spring and summer. Warning you. Fall is definitely my favorite season in Lexington, and it usually starts early October. The humidity drops, everything gets really crisp and fresh, and the leaves are just unreal. You'll get the perfect days, 60, 70 degree weather, just in time for tailgating at those football games you're gonna go to. Then we go into winter, which is polarizing around here. It will snow a handful of times. And most days are 30s and 40s, and it's gray skies, but I love that. Like, give me a little dreary in my life. Let's talk natural disasters. Lexington has a relatively low risk from most natural disasters, but really flooding is the top natural disaster threat in Lexington. Actually, earlier this year, this is 2025, there were 7 to 8 inches of rain that fell over just a few days, and it actually overwhelmed the low-lying areas. So a lot of areas weren't affected at all. Like my area, my house was not affected at all, but then my husband and I would be driving to, you know, restaurant or whatever, and all of a sudden come to a street that dipped low, and it was completely covered with water. Up next on the cons list, taxes. Taxes, taxes, taxes. First, income tax. So Kentucky has a flat 4% state income tax, which is actually lower than most states. Fayette County, aka Lexington, adds an extra 2.25% income tax plus a 0.5% school tax on top of your 4% that you're already paying. Sales tax, simple, 6% across the state. So what's the verdict? Not that bad, but could be better when it comes to taxes. The next con is crime. Lexington is a city, and wherever humans exist, crime exists. So violent crime within Lexington is trending down and is still 26% lower than the national average. But property crime, on the other hand, Lexington sees 37% more property crime than the US average. If you move here, lock your car, hide your valuables, and avoid leaving firearms inside. The research ahead of time, finding out what places fit for you is important. Check out spot crime. You can do some digging, some research, and start to figure out which areas you would be most comfortable in. Up next is the 10 things I wish I knew before moving to Lexington, Kentucky, completely unfiltered. Now it's too late for me, but it's not too late for you. Make sure you check out that next video, and regardless if you're thinking about making a move, hit me up. I help people every day moving to Lexington, and I'd love to help you too. Goodbye.